Triple bag alert, triple bag alert, triple bag alert, triple bag alert, folks. That's right. Tyreek Hill gets paid, Harrison Butker gets paid, and Zaven Collins gets paid, as well as somewhat of a mini rent alert because of all this speculation going on with Brandon York. Okay, we have to address certain things. We gotta call a few people out because things are starting to get out of hand with this whole situation, okay? As well as with the recent signs of Tua and Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and other people, does this put pressure on the Dolphins to win it all this year? And if not, then what should they do moving forward to enhance their chances of winning it all, as well as AFC North training camp coverage? Now, there are a few teams that I have more information about, and then there's other teams that I don't have a whole lot of information about. But we're going to cover all of these things, as well as the rankings for the AFC North, as well as which teams are best prepared to win and make a crazy playoff run and eventually maybe even win a Super Bowl. All of this and more on the 21st episode. Oh, wait, I forgot to tell you the new title has been dropped. I have now decided to call myself Bagrodomus. That's right, Bagrodomus. Yes. Yes, I am your host, your Bagrodomus, your GM, your meteorological bag alert associate, founder, and CEO, Kale. And guess where I am, folks? I'm in the mountains of Washington looking over the beautiful forest. So guess what? You know what we gotta do. Let's lock in. All right, folks. Let's just dive into exactly what's going on because there's a lot of things that we have to talk about within this within this episode. I'm going to try to be as reserved as I possibly can, but it probably will not happen. But let's just go into these bag alerts, okay? So Tyreek Hill's contract situation is a little bit weird, but I'm going to explain it right now so everybody can understand it. So basically, he agreed to a restructured deal of $90 million over the next 3 years, including $65 in guarantees, which brings the total money fully guaranteed to $106.5 while not adding new years to the deal. So basically, what they did was they upped his guarantees for the remaining parts of his contract while at the same time not adding any more years. So in some ways it's a little bit of a raise if you would sort of think of it like that. But this was definitely coming down the pipeline. It was just a matter of when it was going to happen and how much guarantees he was going to be looking for at this point. Let's be real here, folks. Tyreek Hill continues to prove that he is still the best receiver, if not the best receiver, the second best receiver in the league. Okay, when you look at his stats last season, 171 targets for 119 receptions, 1,799 yards, 13 touchdowns, and he had 15.1 yards per reception. Okay, that is Tyreek Hill. This is the person that we're talking about. Now, when you looked at all the things that the Dolphins have done lately, it does beg the questions as far as, do you think the Dolphins are in a position to make a run? And do I think it? No, not really. No, not really, because we have seen multiple times what happens when a team decides to put all of their money on one side of the ball. The other side lacks, and then what happens is they get into a situation where they go up against a team who is able to, basically pick apart that team and pick apart that side of the ball. And now, it's basically they have to, do whatever they have to do in order to win the game, right? And so I say all that to say this, when When you look at some of the things that they've done, within the past, what, 2 or 3 years, they got Bradley Chubb. They traded for him in 2022. They traded for Jalen Ramsey in 2023. They picked up Teron Armstead in free agency. They picked up Calais Campbell in free agency. They picked up OBJ in free agency. They paid Jalen Waddle. They paid Tua. And they also re-signed Raheem Mostert. So they've done a lot of things lately. But the question is this enough for them to win it all? That is the number one question that I think everyone needs to ask at this point. Because for one, the division, there's not a solid, this is the person who owns the division. It's not. The division is up, it's up in the air for anybody at this point. You still have the dysfunctional Jets. You still have the Buffalo Bills, who are still trying to figure out exactly what is their identity, especially for the offensive side. While as their defense is starting to age out, and they really haven't been hitting on a lot of their draft picks when it comes to the defense. And the Patriots are still going through they're going through a hard rebuild. So it's anybody's division at this point. So if the Dolphins were smart, they would try to steamroll everybody within their division, so that it'll give them a better chance to go up against a weaker opponent within the playoffs. Because let's be real here, folks. If the Dolphins were to go up against a team, like the Chiefs, like the Ravens in the playoffs, they would get steamrolled. And it's not only because, the Ravens have this or they have that, or the Chiefs have Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. No. Both of those teams they have a potent offense and a way potent defense, right? You're talking about two teams right now that can play punch you in the mouth style of football, right? And we literally saw how the Dolphins basically crumbled, as the season started to wind down. After that dynamic game against the Broncos, where they put up almost 70, almost 80 points on them, everyone was like, oh, okay, this is you got to worry about the Dolphins now. But it's like, no, because after that, they just fell off. And then not to mention, when they had to go up against the Chiefs in the playoffs, they couldn't take the cold. So it's like, it's a lot riding on this, because they have invested so much into the offense. They've done it. And it's like, okay, at some point, something has to hit. They locked up their their so-called franchise quarterback. They locked up both of their receivers. Something has to click at this point. Something. Now, do I think it's going to happen? I don't know. Unless they, maybe probably do something, for the defense as well. Maybe it can happen. But as of right now, I don't know. I really don't. And I'll just leave it there at now. Moving on to Zaven Collins, outside linebacker for the Arizona Cardinals. He inked a 2-year, $14 million extension, $11.25 million in total guarantees, and he'll be making $7 million a year. Now, when you look at this deal, again, as I've said before, with the whole what is it, Godchow? I think that's his last name, Godchow, for the Patriots. This is basically an insurance policy. This is what it is, because they lost B.J. Ojulari for the rest of the season, because I think he either tore his ACL or he tore his Achilles. So basically, they're just trying to make sure that they lock somebody up at least, while at the same time making sure that nobody tries to go after him once the cut downs happen for rosters and things of that nature. But his stat line really doesn't speak a whole lot, but to say that he is someone that teams have to really worry for, I don't know. Because when you look at his stats, especially last year specifically, he had 3 pass deflections, 3.5 sacks, 6 quarterback hits, 1 pick. Now, when you look at these stats, you're probably thinking, that's not really the best. But, sometimes if you look at the tape, you might see something completely different, right? And so, there's that. I don't really have a whole lot to speak about when it comes to Zaven Collins, but congratulations. Now, when you look at Harrison Butker, kicker for the Chiefs, he inked a 4-year, $25.6 million deal, $17.75 million in guarantees, and he'll be making $6.4 million a year, which technically makes him the highest paid kicker in the NFL. Now, Harrison Butker has been a little bit more of a controversial, figure recently with the recent comments that he's made about women. I'm not going to discuss those. If you want, you can look those up in your own time, but I'm just not going to do that. But the fact of the matter is, Harrison Butker has definitely made a few clutch kicks for the Chiefs to either send them to the Super Bowl or to win the Super Bowl. So congratulations to him and all those different type of stuff. Now, let's get into the meat and potatoes of this situation, because this might turn into a little bit of a rant and learn, and if it does, that's perfectly fine. I really don't care. Just as much as I really don't care about Steelers fans and whatnot. So there was a few people yesterday who I will remain. Well, I'm going to try to keep them anonymous, but if it doesn't happen, then oh well, I don't care. Who were basically putting out tweets that are basically saying that a trade was basically imminent between Brandon Ayuk and the Pittsburgh Steelers. And for the longest time, Steelers Twitter was just they were just going ballistic, because they were like, "Oh, it's about to happen. It's really about to happen. This is really happening." And then come to find out, it never did happen. It's not even close, right? And then later on that night, then you find out that apparently there is offers from both the Patriots and the Browns, who both want Brandon Ayuk. So it's this is what I'll say. This is what I'll say. Brandon Ayuk is in a situation where I understand he wants to get paid. I understand that, no problem against it. But at the same time, you are literally in the best situation possible. Literally, you're in the best position possible, because you are on a team right now that the only two teams that you have to worry about is either the Lions or the Eagles. And even then, guess what? You've beaten both of those teams pretty good, pretty fairly. You've beaten them. So then why in the world would you want to leave a team that is almost destined to go to the Super Bowl this upcoming season, and then go to teams that they don't even they have a chance to do it, but it's not set in stone that they're going to do it, right? Their path to the Super Bowl is 10 to 20 times much more harder than what the 49ers are having to endure. I'm just being honest here. Like, let's just call a spade, right? And I understand. You want to get paid, you want to get all that money, but there's just certain things that you have to, factor in at this point. For one, the 49ers are basically looking for, players that can serve as direct impact to them winning a championship, right? And they're probably looking for a first round pick as well. Now, granted, you probably wouldn't want to go after a team that, could probably have a high first round pick, case in point, the Patriots, compared to going after a team, like the Browns or the Steelers, who, they're probably going to have a middle to late first round pick, right? And then not to mention, the money that you're looking for, that's a lot of money, right? You're looking for money when in all actuality, and I don't care what anyone says, you're not better than AJ Brown, you're not better than Justin Jefferson, you're not better than Devontae Adams, you are not better than some of the highest paid receivers right now, okay? Because let's be real here, you're literally in the best, if not the best, the second best offense in the league right now. So who is to say that a lot of the things that has happened so far is because of the situation that you're in? Because guess what? A team is going to be really pissed off if they put over 25, 30, 34, or like $35 million into you, and you don't even do half the things that you did when you was with San Francisco. So it's a very rocky situation. And if I was Brandon Ayuk, just play it. Just play it. Because guess what? If you win a Super Bowl this year, guess what's going to happen? Your value instantly shoots up. And so now teams basically have to give you your money. They can't just, fight you, tooth and nail about it. No, they're going to give it to you, because why? You're a Super Bowl champion. You contributed to winning a championship, bro. But you doing this is not it's not the way. It's just not. into the the Twitter accounts that you have purchased your blue check marks, and you think that you're credible and whatnot. You're not. You're not. And I you know exactly who I'm talking about. You know exactly who this is going towards, because you cannot put out things and say, "Oh, my source says that not the Patriots, but the Pittsburgh Steelers and the 49ers are very close to working on a deal," and then nothing happens. No, that's not what you do. You're just doing that for clickbait. You're doing that just to get attention. And you shouldn't be doing that anyway, because you're a radio host. But am I not surprised? No, because he's done this before, right? And then you have Twitter accounts like Ricky, who, this was the same fool who basically said, "Oh yeah, the Cowboys and CeeDee Lamb have agreed to a deal." And then you started to see other accounts that were basically saying, "Yes, that's happened," when it's like, no, it never happened. It never happened. It's never happened so far. And this is something that I stick by, and I will continue to stick by. Unless the information is coming from Ian Rappaport, Adam Schefter, Josina Anderson, Kimberly Martin, Jeremy Fowler, Mike Garofalo, Tom Pelissero, or any of those people that are really connected into NFL front offices and have actual real sources and have reported credible information, do not believe anything. Do not believe anything. Now, there are some times where there are people who they have connections that they can tap into, and they can report certain things, and those are the outliers of those different types of situations, right? But what you cannot do is put out fake news, and don't put in your bio or whatnot that, "Oh, I've been covering the league for 8 years, 9 years, 10 years, or whatever." No, you haven't. No, you haven't. No, you haven't. Because when people look at your bio and they click on your link and whatnot, you haven't even put out anything recently. So again, I say all of that to say this: before we react and before we get into our emotions and before we have this big hype about certain things, we need to wait until credible sources report on any and every every type of move that may be occurring within the league, okay? And not just saying, "Oh, well, I have speculation and I believe that things are going to happen." It's okay if you make an educated guess and the educated guess was correct. Then guess what? Congratulations. You want a cookie? But what you cannot do, especially if you have a platform, is report fake news and report fake information that is not credible, and then it does not happen. Because guess what? You know what that does? That puts a stain on your credibility. Well, I wouldn't even say that, because you've never had credibility. Never had credibility. So you're just doing this for likes, and you're doing this for retweets and whatnot, and that's perfectly fine if you want to. But in this type of situation, and how sensitive Steelers Twitter is lately with this whole Brandon Ayuk situation, why in the world would you want to do that? Just why? Why would you want to do that? So, that's all. That's all I have to say about that, because it's gotten to a point where it's like, bro, everybody acts like they're the credible source. Everybody acts like, "Oh, I know this person, I know that person." Y'all don't know shit. Y'all don't. Y'all don't know a damn thing. Y'all think y'all do. Y'all think because, well, I talked to my friend who, my man's, he works, in the janitor's office of the 49ers, and, he was cleaning out his trash can, and, he stumbled, and he saw, John Lynch's phone was open and whatnot. Stop. Stop. Please stop. Get some help. Get some help, okay? Drink some water, because you don't know what you're talking about. Leave the real reporting and the real journalism, and I mean real journalism, to the people that actually do these things, that have these conversations behind closed doors, that knows things way before they even happen, and then report them in an accurate way. Okay? Do that. Do that for all of us, please. Now, on to bigger and better things than to talk about people who don't know what they're talking about, who have no credibility to their name, but just a platform, the somewhat rocky, unstable platform that they have. Let's talk about the AFC North. Okay, so far recently with everything that's been going on, especially with training camp, I've definitely heard a lot of good and a lot of positive things. But I will say this: the thing that really is really starting to grab my attention is what the Ravens are doing. Right. So if you guys don't know, the Ravens brought in what was it? Free agent center, former Dolphins, Connor Williams in for a visit, and apparently he's supposed to be making his decision soon between the Ravens and the Seahawks, according to Adam Schefter. And so basically, the Ravens low key they can run it back. And I think this year they could probably go farther than what they did last year because now you have this battering ram, this tank in Derrick Henry on that offense, behind that offensive line. Okay. Now, me personally, I think what really stands out more for that team is the defense. The defense, from what I've heard and from what I've read, sounds very, very, very ready to compete with some of the best. I really do. With them drafting Nate Wiggins and then TJ Tampa, and then them just doing the things that they do for that defense, I would not be surprised if that's a top 3 or top 5 defense. I would not be surprised. I just wouldn't. And then not to mention, Trent Simpson is starting to get more reps, as the number 2 middle linebacker along with, Roquan Smith. So, Kyle Hamilton is doing his thing. Lamar is starting to get back into the swing of things. I know he had some of what was it? So sort of like a stomach bug or like a little bit of like the stomach flu or something. But I know he's going to be fine. But I think really, the Ravens are in a really good situation this year. They really can. I think if they come out guns blazing against the Chiefs and they really like punch them in the mouth, that sends a message not only to the AFC but to everybody into the league. We're not the ones to play with. That's the message. And so, I say all that to say this. The Ravens, I'm keeping a very close eye on. I really am. Because they honestly really just need to just bolster up their offensive line. It's not even really all their offensive line. I think it's more of their interior offensive line, specifically guard. I think if they do that, while also having someone who can play center if need be, I think that definitely helps out a lot. And I think they just need another pass rusher. So I wouldn't be surprised if they try to, take a swing at someone like a Judon or, whoever could become, available. I just would not be surprised, right? Now, moving on to the Browns, I haven't really heard a whole lot about the Browns, but I wouldn't be surprised if things are starting to, go into a somewhat of a good place. I do feel like there is a lot of pressure on Deshaun Watson's shoulders this year because the Browns moved heaven and earth to get him, and so far it's starting to look like that was a reach, a major reach if we can be honest here, right? Now, granted, I understand he was hurt last year. Okay, perfectly fine, but the level of excuses is starting to dwindle, right? So at some point, Deshaun Watson has to show up. He has to show up. That defense balls out every single year. It's time for Deshaun Watson to show up, okay? Because if we can be real here, folks, Joe Flacco showed a lot more, and he was playing with house money compared to what Deshaun Watson was doing. And mind you, they gave Deshaun Watson a fully guaranteed contract. But I'm going to leave that alone. Now, moving on to the Bengals. The Bengals, I've heard more about the offense, and I really heard a lot about the defense. I know Jamar Chase is holding in and whatnot. I don't know exactly what's going on with T. Higgins either, but the big craze that's been going on is Joe Burrow blonding his hair and basically looking like Eminem when he was Slim Shady and whatnot. Don't really care about that. The fact of the matter is, folks, the Bengals are in somewhat of a crossroads this year, okay? And the reason why I say that is because, look, that defense has aged horribly. They've lost a lot of their players to free agency and cuts and trades and whatnot, okay? The offense is the only thing that's keeping them alive and in games. That's the only thing. And even then, I mean, the run game is basically gone at this point because they traded away Joe Mixon. So it's like, exactly how in the world are things going to flow this year? Okay, with them losing Tyler Boyd and then replacing him with Jermaine Burton, exactly how is this offense going to flow? Okay, Joe Burrow is still Joe Burrow. I don't care what anyone says. Despite the injuries that he suffered, he's still a top five, top 10 quarterback. Okay, he is still somebody that can win games, that can carry that offense on his shoulders and get the win if need be. I really want to see though how things work out with their offensive line, especially their tackles. Okay, because they drafted Amarius Mims and then they paid for Trent Brown, and then they also have Orlando Brown as well. So I just want to see exactly how things are just going to mesh together. I think that's somewhat of the biggest question that I have for them at this point. And should they possibly be a little bit active, once the cuts happen and whatnot, to try to bolster up that defense, especially that secondary, because let's be real here, folks, that secondary is dog water. It's dog water. Aside from Mike Hilton, who is mainly a slot cornerback and is mainly used for blitzing and whatnot, what else do you have? What else do you really have? Nothing. I mean, granted, you have Trey Hendrickson and you have Sam Hubbard, but you lost Larry Ogunjobi. You lost DJ Reader this year in free agency. I mean, you have Logan Wilson. You still have Jermaine Pratt, but I mean, that's not a whole lot. That's not earth shadowing and whatnot. Okay, granted, they got Geno Stone, but it's like, okay, let's see. Let's see what happens at this point, right? Now, moving on to the Steelers. Now, you're probably wondering why did I leave the Steelers for last? Because there's a lot of things that I have to talk about here. And again, Steelers fans, if you get mad at me, that's perfectly fine. Do not care. I think my main takeaway is I want to see exactly how things are going to go leading into preseason and into the regular season, because and this is how I'm viewing things, right? Last year, during training camp and preseason, we were seeing, Kenny Pickett, do his thing, and he was lining it up, and the offense was flowing, and everything was looking great, and everyone was really talking about it. Everyone was like, "Whoa, this offense looks different." And then guess what? Week one didn't do a damn thing. Didn't do a damn thing. So I say all that to say this: don't always believe the hype. Okay, this is practice we're talking about, not a game. Not a real game, not a scrimmage, but we're talking about practice, okay? And, I do feel like, it's still Russell Wilson's job to lose. However, I do think with Justin Fields being able to, take those first team reps and, build chemistry with all the receivers and, including Pat Freiermuth and then as well as Najee Harris and whatnot, I definitely do think, that makes the Steelers feel a little bit more confident in potentially, signing him to a longer term deal. Once this upcoming season is over with, and then probably letting, Russell Wilson go. I understand, there are still people that are saying, well, I think Justin Fields is over Russell Wilson. No, he's not. No, he's not. I don't care what anyone says. I understand he hasn't, done a whole lot. Best believe when week one comes around, Russell Wilson will be ready. He will be ready. He will be ready to compete. He will be ready to, show why he is still a dangerous quarterback. Okay, that's just what it boils down to. As far as the defense is the defense. Not a whole lot to say about it. T.J. Watt doing his thing, Alex Highsmith doing his thing, Peyton Wilson is looking like a dog out there. Patrick Queen is doing his thing, so great for that. I will say this, Beanie Bishop has definitely been lining it up. He really has. He is gonna make it. He's gonna make the roster. He definitely is. But my question is, should they go after maybe one more corner, just to shore things up? Because after Joey Porter Jr. and Dante Jackson, I mean, sure they have Darius Rush and Corey Trice, but they haven't had a whole lot of experience and a whole lot of reps, right? And you still have people like Adoree Jackson, Xavier Howard, Stephon Gilmore, who are in free agency. J.C. Jackson, right? That if you get them on your team, that could shore things up a little. That can shore things up a lot, honestly, because they have experience. They know, what's the best way to go up against this type of receiver, that type of receiver. They have those type of things, especially someone like a Stephon Gilmore, right? He's won a defensive player of the year. He's won championships. He's been, one of the best corners in the league. So he knows the ins and outs. He can still tackle. He can still, go with the best. He can still do that, right? So I say all that to say this. The Steelers probably need to invest into figuring out what they want to do with that, as well as what they want to do with the defensive line. Because, you have two veterans who, Larry Ogunjobi, you can't really rely on. You basically have to wrap him up in bubble wrap because every time he gets on the field, he gets hurt and he can't stay healthy. He just can't. And then once he starts to get hurt, his production does start to go down a little bit. Cam, Cam is Cam, but exactly, you know, what exactly do you expect for him to do at this point, right? Do you expect for him to go back to the 10.5 sack season type of Cam, or do you expect more out of him, right? Um, and I'll just leave it there. Now for the offense, well, back to the offense. I just want to see how things are going to go with Arthur Smith. Okay, I'm tired of the talking, tired of the debating, tired of the speculation, whatnot. I want to see how things are going to go. That's what I want to see. Okay, I want to see, are these receivers, like that, or if they're not, and if so, do they need to go after somebody? As well as, is this run game going to be potent? That's what I want to see at this point. Because, for the longest time, everyone was saying, oh, we want to run the ball, run the ball, run the ball. Well, this is your opportunity to run the ball, run the ball, run the ball. And I think, and this will probably be the last thing I'll probably say about them. I think the main problem that I have is Broderick Jones hasn't had a lot of time playing at left tackle, which sort of, worries me just a little bit because, Omar Khan basically said that Broderick Jones will play left tackle. It's like, now is the time for you to play left tackle, okay? You have Troy Fautanu. Troy Fautanu is going to play at right tackle. They need to build that chemistry together. That line needs to build that chemistry together because Dan Moore at this point, I would not be surprised if he get traded or cut and whatnot. He's still a good, productive left tackle, but you invested 2 drafts back to back in tackle. They have to play, at their respective positions at this point. They have to, right? And the question is, when is that going to happen? Is that going to happen now? Is it going to happen next year? Like the longer that you put this off, the worse, the worse of an outcome it could possibly be, right? Now, moving on to, who I think is probably the best positioned team in the North to make a playoff run. Now, me personally, I would say it's probably the Ravens first, then the Browns, then the Steelers, then the Bengals. And the reason why I have it at that is because the Ravens are still, unfortunately, the best team in the AFC North. Yes, I said it. Yes, I said it. Mook, yes, I said it. I said it. I said it. Whatever. Don't care. They are still the best team in the division, and they're only going to get better as the season progresses, right? That's just what it is. They have a potent offense as well as a very potent defense. Okay, they are going to create problems for a lot of teams. Okay, they still play that physical brand of football that not a lot of teams like. They can still do it. They still, when you have dogs on both sides of the ball, when you have a Derrick Henry, when you have a Mark Andrews, a Lamar on the offense, right? A Zay Flowers on the offense, Rashad Bateman on the offense, right? When you got a Roquan Smith, a Kyle Hamilton, a Marcus Williams, a Justin Metabuke. When you have those type of dogs on your team, you still got Marlon, and now you got Nate Wiggins who can run a 4-2, and you got TJ Tampa as well. You got some dogs on your team, right? So it's only up from here at this point. The level of expectation is at an all-time high for the Ravens. You have to do it. You have to do it. You have to win it all. Now, when you look at the Browns are somewhat in the same situation. They still have a top five defense. It's just a matter of how exactly is the offense going to work, right? Because the offense is still trying to, pick themselves up and sort of, figure out exactly how do they want to run things, as well as, still develop that chemistry with Deshaun Watson and, his receivers and then tight ends and, whoever else. So, it's a lot of, questions up in the air for the Browns. Now for the Steelers, the reason why I put them at third is because their defense is still, their defense still plays a major factor in everything that they do. And I do think that they should be a top 10, maybe top 15, run offense. I do think they'll be a little bit more productive. I can't even speak. Productive than what they have been the last 2 years with Matt Canada and whatnot. And for the Bengals, I just don't trust the Bengals. I just don't, unless they make somewhat of a blockbuster trade, for the defense. I just don't see it. I just don't. I just think the Bengals at this point, in some ways, have become one dimensional, and it's mainly just their offense. And if you take away both T. Higgins and if you take away Jamar Chase, I mean, what else do you have? Not to mention you have a rookie right tackle, and someone like a T.J. Watt is going to eat that up. You know that. You know that. Everyone knows that, right? So Bengals fans, sucks to be y'all, but I don't think you guys are going to make it. Now, do I think the division is going to be as competitive as it was last year? Yes. I do think it's going to come down to the last 2 or 3 games. I truly do believe that because, again, as much as I want to say the Ravens are, the clear-cut, divisional winners, it's still anybody's division. It still is. Okay, you still got, the Browns are still in it. You still got the Steelers that, can be a thorn in people's sides, especially late into the season. It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot, folks. It really is. Now, I want to do something a little bit different, as I have, elevated my status to Bagrodomus. Yes, that is the name of this episode, Bagrodomus. This is my predictions, moving forward. So, I do think Brandon Ayuk does get traded fairly soon, especially with things coming out, especially with, Adam Schefter tweeting out this morning, basically saying that, the 49ers have given Brandon Ayuk and his agent permission to talk to other teams to facilitate a trade, which sort of speed things up a little bit more, okay? Now the question is, where does he go to? Now, do I think he would go to the Patriots? No. I don't think that. Do I think he probably would go to the Browns? Possibly, but I don't think the Browns can pay him the money that he wants, right? Because I won't even report on that because I don't know if it's credible or not, but it's a very rocky situation right now because his options are very limited, and the 49ers are looking for resources that can help them win a Super Bowl this year. Not next year, not 2 years from now, but this year, right? And so the question is, where's he going to go? If it's me personally, I still feel like he's probably going to go to the Steelers, unfortunately. I don't know what they're going to give up in return, but I do think something is going to get done with them. I just truly believe that. I think he's probably going to ink a 4-year, $125.8 million deal, which would be around $31.45 million a year, or a 4-year, $119.8 million deal, which would be $29.95 million a year, right? Now, moving on for CeeDee Lamb, I do think CeeDee Lamb either signs an extension or he's just going to play the rest of this season now and just hit free agency next year. And if he does an extension, my prediction is a 4-year, $132.4 million deal, which would be $33.1 million a year. Now for that situation, I just feel like I think the Cowboys are going to try to lock up both Dak and CeeDee Lamb. I think what I think what's going to make things a little bit difficult is for Micah Parsons, because the pass rusher market is stupid high right now. So I think Jerry will try. I think he's going to try his hardest to try to get all three of them done. But if he can only get two of them done, and it's CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott, I don't think he's probably going to trip over it, honestly. Now Jamar Chase, I do think the Bengals are going to lock him up. I do think it's going to be somewhat of a dragged out type of situation, but I do think a deal will get done eventually. I just truly do, but it's going to come at the cost of T. Higgins, walking and hitting free agency. That's just what it is at this point, because I think the Bengals realize that they can't pay, $30+ million to two receivers and then pay 55+ million to their quarterback. I just don't see it, honestly. So it's a lot. It's a lot of moving pieces. Do I think things could possibly change? Maybe a deal could get done. I can't speak. Maybe a deal could get done for the both of them, and it keeps that core, together. There's a possibility, anything can happen, but I just don't think T. Higgins I don't think he wants to stay with that team no more. I think he wants to go have a clean start somewhere else. Honestly speaking here, I would not be surprised if they get into a situation where T. Higgins wants to be traded before the trade deadline this season. I would not be surprised. You heard that first from your Bagrodomus on this episode 21 of the Football Junkies podcast. And as always, please like the podcast on any podcast streaming platform that you guys listen to, whether that be Apple Podcasts, Spotify, RSS feed, wherever you can listen to this podcast, right? As always, you can follow us on all of our socials. You can follow us on Instagram at football_junkiespod. Again, that's football_junkiespod. Junkiespod is together. It's not spaced out. You can follow us on TikTok at football_junkiespod. You can also follow us on YouTube at football_junkiespod. If you go on our Instagram as well as our YouTube, there is a link tree there, and it will take you to any of the other places that you're looking to go to and interact with. And as always, I hope I gave you guys the fix that you guys needed this week. I love you guys. I appreciate you guys so much. Stay tuned. I would not be surprised if we have a double or triple upload this week. Okay, we've been on a streak since football has come back and people have been in training camp, so I would not be surprised. As always, I love you guys. I appreciate you guys so much for being on this journey with me. Shout out to all the football junkies worldwide, to the junkies in Canada, to the junkies in Europe, to the junkies in the West Coast, the Midwest, and the East Coast, and even the junkies in the Philippines. We love you guys. We appreciate you guys. Peace and love. I'm out.